We stand up to power and control. Let God's love and justice roll.
Hey.
Hey, good to see
you. How are you, Andrew?
Doing good.
Good.
Been a little busy, but I'm doing good.
Busy is better than bored.
Yes.
Under most circumstances, but especially ADHD like you are, busy is way better than bored, right?
My growth edge is inner stillness.
I love it. I love it. I have not heard it called my growth edge before. I might be using that. I should copyright Andrew underneath.
There you go.
So I am really excited to be able to do this author chat with you this morning. And there's multiple reasons that we are sitting here together right now. So let's talk about your new book that just launched. What?
Yes,
6 weeks ago?
Yeah, this past week. I guess we're 1 week in. Of course, a bunch of weather everywhere, and everybody's having a hard time getting their book, which is unfortunate, I guess.
I know. I'm going to drag Amazon right now.
Amazon crap the bed. Don't leave a bad review.
I am not leaving a bad review. I already left a glowing review because, wait a second. You went mute. Dude, what happened to your... Hold on. Did you pull your cord out?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes. Okay.
I pressed this little button on accident.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
My flying elbow. So yes, the book is out. I'm super pumped, and reviews are trickling in, and I think it's a really important book. I'm a little biased because it took me 5 years to write this book.
Tell me more about why it took you 5 years.
Yeah, well, one, it was part of my dissertation, and that just sucked and took a really long time. But
tell us how you really feel.
But it was a culmination of, in 18, I read a study. It was the study was from 2015 called Elephant in the Valley. And it was a study on sexism in the tech industry. And so that got me thinking, well, what about other male industries? And I was like, oh, what about the male industry that I am intimately a part of and have been a part of my whole life, the church.
What's theology in the church? Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. And
I've never heard it called that before. How is that?
I wanted to study, 87% of men lead churches. What is it like for women who work in the church? What is their experience of sexism? What is their experience of abuse? And why don't I know much about it? And I'm a dude who used to work in the church, and that was my career before I became a therapist some 20 years ago, working as a youth and college pastor, and what I went to college for, in a Bible and religion degree. And then just realizing, I want to study this. So I actually had started another dissertation, and I dropped that, and then just fully focused my work in this arena. And so we gathered over 2,800 women who worked in the church and their experience of sexism and abuse from all sorts of denominations. The leader, I'm looking here at the stats now, non-denominational was 846, Assemblies of God, 242. The Presbyterians came in at 170. The Baptists with a strong 578. All sorts of people from all over different denominations. But the stats are sad. A few failures of my study was it was a bunch of mostly white women. So it was 94% white. And so I would have loved more diversity. So that was a failure in the study, or somebody else jump in and study some other people.
We need to do more studies like that.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
More studies need to be done. Yeah.
But one of the things was 16% of the women had been in ministry for over 25 years. Isn't that wild? And 25% had been in over 16 years. So we have women literally front lines. We have stories now, right? So my goal was not to say, hey, this is some theological mansplain. I'm going to tell you about women's experience. This was me actually being an investigative journalist and trying to understand, well, what is women's experience? I've been a part of the problem. I was a part of the boys club. And we would, create these events catered to dudes. Let's do hunting night and beer night and car shows and, whatever. It was Southern Baptist, like the mega mall mentality. Let's create, because if we get the men If we get the men, then the women will follow, the children will follow. And it was just this male centric gospel that was actually rooted out of our own insecurity rather
Mm.
than actually like a deep understanding of the gospel or the life of Jesus. It was actually more out of our insecurity and our underdeveloped self.
That's pretty intense. I want to affirm something because we both know, and those who hang out on our pages and in our support groups know that there have been plenty of books out there over the last 50 years that have
Hmm.
just been sat down and written by some random person, male or female,
Hmm.
who had an idea or a fantasy and wrote it, codified it into a moral mandate for everyone else who read their book. And there have been far
Yes.
too few books that um, that really are based on evidence, that
Yes.
have done research, that have done studies, that have sat down and interviewed 2,800 people or done surveys for thousands of people. So I really want to affirm the fact that this book, maybe it took you 5 or 6 years, okay, but it's because you took the time to do the research and the study for
Yeah.
it. Instead of just sitting down, whipping out a bunch of opinions out of your butt and just like writing out over to a
Right.
publisher.
Right.
Um,
Or my own unaddressed like shadow, my own unaddressed issues, my own
yeah,
unaddressed shame that I
yeah,
was part of the problem. So now I need to, basically mitigate my sins. It's like, no, we got to find out what's going on. I think this is the problem. I think this is what's going on. But I want to hear from the marginalized. I want to hear from the women who are being mostly impacted because I'll never be a woman. I will not see. I have my own blind spots, and I have to be humble enough to say, okay, this influences what I see, and I want to see from a different angle.
right. Well, I I want to thank you for that. And full disclosure for those who are watching, by the way, if you are watching right now, this is a brief but powerful conversation that we are having this morning. And I would love for you to share this forward, send it to a friend, repost it on your page, post the link, tag a friend underneath, whatever it is to help spread the word. Because this book, Safe Church, can you hold it up, Andrew, so that we can all see it? This book right here,
Your copy has not come in yet,
my copy
unfortunately.
hasn't come in. Thank you.
Boo.
But this right here is it just dropped a week ago. And it's a book that your pastors, your youth leaders, your church study directors, Bible study leaders, class leaders, they need this book.
Yes.
Your church school teachers need this book. Your youth group and lay leaders need this book. Your church's elders, deacons, whatever your denomination calls the congregational leadership positions, they need this book.
Yes.
And this is
Yeah.
something that it's not just another opinion, it's the result of years of study.
Yeah. 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 I really believe this book's important. And I just read some online review, like, it's not as biblically, the biblical scholarship or something. It's just like, yeah, you're right. I'm not a biblical scholar. Thank God. Right. It's like, I'm like, I'd be so bored of myself. No, I'm a therapist who used to be a pastor, and that, like, yeah, that's not what I do. And
Right.
yet I dove in. I dove in a little bit out of my purview of diving into a lot of other biblical scholars and studied a
Sure.
lot and read what everybody was saying. And but
But you weren't intending it to be
right,
a biblical scholarship book. You were
right,
intending it to be a dissemination of the results of a
yes,
study of nearly 3,000 women in ministry. And honestly,
exactly,
I spent 13 years as a pastor's wife, as a clergy
right,
spouse. During most of those years, I was employed part time contract, um, on the side by church administration at various levels, some going all the way up to like global headquarters, world headquarters, different jobs. I've been a woman in ministry. I remember being at Bible college. And I'm going to tell a horrifying story right here. And I'm also going to drop the link to this right there so you can go get it. But I remember being in Bible college, and I was 18, 19 years old. I had been placed in charge of an outreach group. I had all these kinds of ideas for this outreach group. I was super excited about it. I showed up to the outreach group, and as I was laying out the ideas, everyone male was resistant.
Yep.
And the females followed suit because the males were resistant. Now, I hadn't put together back then, at the tender age of 18 or so, that it was because I was female, and that I hadn't pegged yet that the males that were most resistant were all the theology students.
Yes.
They did not like the fact that they had been randomly assigned to an outreach project that was being run by a woman. And so after the fact, I was super discouraged. And I spoke to one of my good friends who happened to be a guy. And he said, I tell you what, I know why they don't want to do this. I know why they're not listening. It's just because you're a girl, and they know that they really should be in charge of this. So why don't you tell me all your ideas ahead of time? I'll take over the meeting. I will share all of your ideas. And because I'm a guy, they'll listen to me. And what does it matter if they don't listen to you? The job still gets done, right?
Gross.
And I remember feeling very, I'm not even sure if I have a good word for it. And I usually have pretty good words for articulating my feelings, but confused. He did it in a kind way. So I didn't feel directly belittled and demeaned, but I just felt devalued.
Well, he spoke something that's normally hush hush, and it's part of the boys. It's part of the it's part of the boys club. He spoke the quiet part out loud.
Exactly.
You know,
but my thought at the time was, I don't really care if I get credit for it. I'm not in it for the credit. So,
right.
Okay. And I went along with it. And that was probably one of the earliest overt inceptions for me of feeling like, if I'm going to do ministry, I have to do it behind. You know how we call it, like if a guy is hiding something behind a woman, he's like hiding behind a skirt. I needed to hide behind a pair of pants.
Right.
I needed to be behind a three-piece suit somehow and have a male in front of me in order for anything that came from my brain to be taken seriously by male or female.
Classic.
I've never forgotten that.
All right. And I heard, a similar story that thousands of times. It's just like your experience, sadly, is not isolated. It's the norm. 82% said they felt like sexism was in their church. 62% said they wouldn't be surprised if they heard a sexist joke. Almost 78 said that their opportunity in ministry had been limited because of their gender. Right. 35% said that they had been had sexual misconduct or sexual abuse, or they answered it was complicated. Right. So it's 1 in 3. Like there's a story there, right? It's like something's going on, and this is an epidemic that is led by, I believe, male insecurity and toxic readings of scripture that we have misinterpreted through the lens of patriarchy, through the lens of our pornographic mindsets, and we have distorted what I believe is actually the true interpretation. And you can know that by literally just looking at the life of Jesus and his relationship with women, and what that compares like to the leadership of your church.
Yeah. And I love that approach where it's not about dogging masculinity or dogging femininity. It's not about saying, oh, well, men are just toxic. I know so many wonderful, fabulous, healthy men.
Yes.
and a whole lot more men who are seeking to be
Yes.
healthy and honest and good Christ-like men as they work through the junk that the world has just tossed into their lives.
Yes.
And I know some women who are absolutely unashamedly toxic and unrepentantly toxic. And I know a whole lot of women who
Yeah.
are deeply, profoundly seeking to work through the junk that the world has thrown into their lives and be healthy, whole humans.
Yes.
So I deeply appreciate that you've taken the perspective in Safe Church of not blaming gender or dragging one side or the other, but saying, hey, this is what it is right now. It's been baked into the system across denominations. How about
Yes.
we look at the character of Christ? Let's
Yes.
look at who Jesus is and how Jesus interacted, and let's measure ourselves against that.
Yes.
Not male against female, female against male, not this denomination against that denomination, not comps against egalitarians, not right against left. Let's look at Jesus. How do
Yes.
we be more like Jesus?
Exactly. And Jesus literally is embedded in a, patriarchal Roman culture that did not honor women as equals, right? And Jesus literally flies in the face of, and then when you look at the Greeks, and I did a whole chapter on some of the history of the Greeks. I mean, Saint Augustine, regarded as one of the most impactful figures of Christian thought. He separated a woman's body, dehumanizing her. You look at all these, Saint Aquinas. I mean, some of the things that they said about women is just horrific. Women are monstrosities and they are deformed males. One of the classic Greek writers, Homer, you have all these classics you can read about in my book. I didn't memorize them all, but it's just like horrific, right? And so
I love it. They're all in there.
Jesus is born. I mean, Jesus is in this system, and here they create this, 30 years later, whatever, and Paul comes around, this new church that's just radically empowering to women.
Yeah.
It's just so flies in the face, and yet they're kind of doing this dance. And then the way Jesus engages women, the woman at the well is my favorite one, John 4. It's just wild how he's breaking down sexism in the relationships between the Samaritans and the Jewish women. And this woman is the outcast among outcasts, right? And he literally asks to share spit with her, which is a one way ticket to
It's a little
hell.
bit intimate when you put it like that.
Yeah, like it's a one way ticket to hell, in the Jewish culture to share spit with someone who is unclean.
Yeah.
And it's just like Jesus does all these radical things. It doesn't stop there, right? The alabaster jar story in Luke 7, the Canaanite woman in Matthew 15, obviously Mary Magdalene in John 20. Here, take the most important part of the gospel message, my story of resurrection, and go preach to the world.
Yeah.
Oh, but women need to be silent, right? We take these few scriptures out of context, which I have a whole chapter on, but
Mhm.
we focus on kind of the classic ones. 1 Timothy 1, 1 Timothy 2:11, right?
Mhm.
Women should be silent. Is the other one, 1 Corinthians 14. Women should be silent. They're not allowed to speak in church. And then the other one is a woman should learn quietly in full submission. Do not allow a woman to teach or have authority over a man. Instead, she should remain quiet. So you read these verses and like, oh, well, that seems clear. Women shouldn't teach. And I'm like, wait, we gotta look a little deeper, guys. What do some of these words actually mean? And could it be some faulty interpretations here that are going on? And when you look at the word Hashua, which is the 1 Timothy, it was translated into be quiet. It actually means stillness.
Mm.
Women, be still. Oh, interesting. That sounds a little different, right? That sounds a little
Martha, when Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet and Martha's bustling around, and he's like, maybe you could just like
chill.
just
Yeah.
still.
Be still. Be still, right? And you look at the word authoritarian, um, which comes from right here. I do not allow a woman to teach or have authority over a man. Well, that word is authoritarian, which actually is a loose translation. It actually means abusing one's power and authority. So what it says is, women, don't abuse your power and authority, which actually means that you have power and authority.
That sounds like authoritarian parenting as opposed to authoritative. Like using your authority well, authoritative, authoritarian,
Yes.
abusing the power of your authority over your children.
Yes.
So clearly women are not to abuse their power and authority over men in reverse either, which that could open a whole different conversation, which we are not going to get into today.
There you go.
But
back, yeah, that closing the closing thought there, right? There's no hierarchy in Christ, right?
Yeah.
Acts 2:18, I'll pour out my spirit, both men and women will prophesy. We are all one in Christ Jesus, Galatians 3:28, right? We have to understand that we have taken these few verses and we've used them to abuse, harm, subjugate, oppress women, rather than actually having a better understanding of these texts.
And in all honesty, the flip result of that is not healthier for men either.
Bingo. Not at all.
It tears both down.
Correct.
So I want to bring up something that is super cool. I'm going to show a very quick video, quickly, about something that Andrew and I are actually doing together. Andrew's leading out in this, and I'm supporting him in this.
Silent tears on sacred ground. In this place, no solace found. Folded hands, but burdens grow. Where love should live, but scars still show.
That, you guys, is coming March 7 and 8 in Brevard, North Carolina. The State Church. Tell us more.
Yes, I'm so pumped. I want to hang out with my friends and meet a lot of new friends, and I want to have conversations that matter. I want to start changing this conversation, and there's so many of us that have felt the harm from this, and yet where are the tools, right? Where are the tools that we can continue to learn to be empowered to have these conversations, right? And so we've got myself, you, Jay Stringer's coming.
Jay Stringer's the author of Unwanted.
Yep. And so Christy Bauman, my wife, Dr. Camden Morgante is coming to talk about recovering from purity culture. Rick Piddock is coming. Journalist, writes amazing articles. And then local Reverend Dr. Pamela Holder will be talking about her experience of domestic violence and doing breakout sessions. And so we're going to have a good time. We want you to come. We've also got availability on a virtual. If you can't come for some reason, we got a virtual ticket, and that will be just cover the 10 keynote lecture.
Right. Now, just some housekeeping input here, and this is where you guys tag a friend if you know of someone who you would like to bring along, or you want to buy some live stream tickets and jump in together and watch this and discuss it. So there's unlimited live stream tickets. Am I right? Unlimited live stream tickets, and those will be
thousands and thousands of you
anywhere in the world is fine.
Right.
And they'll be recorded so you can watch them later. Like if you're on the opposite side of the planet, which I know I've already had some people talk to me that it would be midnight or whatever, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're probably not going to do that for 2 nights in a row, but you can watch them after the fact. Oh, even better though, come and join us in person. Bring your leadership team, bring some friends from church who are like-minded, who you really want to just create a completely different perspective in your local community, and you want to have more tools to be able to do that. We've got breakout sessions from Dr. Christy Bauman, and she's the author of Theology of the Womb and Her Rights. And we've got Dr. Camden Morgante, who is the author of the new Recovering from Purity Culture book. We've got Rick Pidcock, who writes for Baptist News Global. Is it Baptist Global News? Baptist News Global. Yep. And he really addresses some heavy duty issues in his journalism articles. We've got Dr. Reverend Pamela Holder, and she's going to be sharing. They're all four of those are doing breakout sessions over those 2 days. And then you've got Jay Stringer, who's a well-known therapist and author of the book Unwanted about addiction, sexual addiction. And you've got Andrew and I here. Andrew's talking about the study results in the book. And I'm going to be talking about how to recognize abusive patterns for your own church and your own community so that you can be wiser and have those tools. We are so excited. There is a limited number of in-person tickets, so don't wait to grab those, because it's not like a huge auditorium amphitheater.
Next year is the stadium.
No.
Yeah, next year's the stadium.
Yeah, stadium. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not the stadium this year. It's going to be a little bit more limited than that, but it is the perfect time for you to grab those tickets.
That's right, and we do have group discounts as far as, you know, 5. If you have 5 and over, you can get a discounted
Perfection.
an early bird rate. So if you have a group of 5, you and your closest friends, 20 of your closest friends and enemies, bring them along.
Bring your enemies too.
That's right.
We will love them into agreement. No, I'm kidding. We will not. But yeah, we would really love to be able to hang out with you in person. There'll be exhibits. There's great restaurants in the area. I know when I was out and we were got to hang out for a bit, we went to a fabulous restaurant just down the street. Yes. And it's a perfect place to connect with those who also want to bring healing and more Christ-likeness.
Yes.
To make churches safer.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. And I wrote it yesterday, kind of in the little thing. I'm ready to create some holy trouble. I don't know if
I saw that. I laughed so hard.
I don't know if it's where I'm at as far as just, you know,
flipping tables.
Getting in my mid 40s, but I'm losing more and more of like, I'm kind of tired of the status quo, man. I'm ready to rock the boat and make some people angry and start changing some stuff. I'm ready to start changing some norms. I'm kind of tired of the same old, and kind of the same perpetrations happening over and over and over again with the same victims. We got to make some people in power very uncomfortable. And that's my specialty. That's what I like to do.
Well, I love that you do that so well. Yes. Before we wrap this up, because I know you have something coming.
I was wrong. I got a few more minutes.
You got a few more minutes? Okay.
I was like an hour off of my schedule. So
okay. ADD for the win.
There you go.
But before we do wrap this up, I want to ask you, if you were like if everything were absolutely amazing and you got your dream to come true, what impact would the Safe Church book have on the publishing world and the future books that come out on shelves? Like, what legacy do you dream of this book leaving?
Yeah, my hope is that it begins to change the culture, right? I know your stuff, Sheila's stuff, like Jay's stuff, like I'm ready for new materials to kind of take the forefront, rather than some of these toxic books that have been so prominent. And I'm ready for some of those toxic voices to be in the kind of the background. And, you know, I know just kind of culturally and politically where we're at, you know, it's just like, it's this weird spot where we're at. And I think more now than ever, we need prophets speaking truth to power, and calling us to, I believe, what God has meant us to be, which is much more equity, inclusion, and right. Jesus's harshest message was right to the religious folks, and it's like, it's time. Everybody's got to begin to use their voice, especially men, who have been sadly many times bystanders to sexism, rather than this is a male issue, rather than so many women have led this, and I've learned from so many women. Immediately think of my professor, from grad school. She was just amazing, amazing woman. She was trying to think of the Northwest family life she led for 30 years, and
Mm.
she is a stud. So she is quoted in the book a lot. Why can't I even think of her name right now? Um, I know she's a stud. I can't find it. Anyway, she's the best. I'll
But
tell
what did
you.
you
I'll tell you.
say?
I'll put it. Dr. Nancy Murphy. There's you go. I just had a total brain fart. So she is awesome. I wish she could be at the conference. But
Yeah.
yes, he mentored me for years in this work, and just a profound, powerful story. And I mean, she's spoken at the UN and done domestic violence laws all over the world. And but she is a powerhouse. And so women like that have led me and taught me for
Mhm.
forever. And like now I'm ready to kind of step into that. But as a man, I remember she told me 15 years ago, she said, Andrew, I don't envy what you're about to step into being a male in this
Mm.
arena of domestic violence. And I was like, yeah, well, it's fine. Blah, blah, blah. And then now I'm realizing, oh gosh, I feel like I'm the target of so much projection and so much unhealed wounds of being a man in this thing. And yet the beautiful part is also redemption is there
Yeah.
because so many men have I'm able to stand in the gap and help women that have experienced male violence from many men just like me. So both are true. um,
I think that there's so much healing that needs to be done, so much need for compassion all the way around. And I will very bluntly say that I am thrilled at the prospect of more and more strong voiced men living out and modeling, but also speaking strongly,
mhm.
using their voice to no longer be bystanders
Yes.
in this kind of subject. The more men that we have advocating for mutuality, for respect that goes both ways, for valuing each other in ways that reflect the character and the integrity of Christ, the better the
Yeah.
church, safer the church and society can be. Um, and as a woman who has 10 years ago been very unwittingly pushed into more and more of this work, I would be absolutely delighted to be able to take a step back from the front lines of this and just,
Yes.
you know what, I'll just reload for you guys. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
I You guys take over the front lines of this,
Mhm.
be that frontline surge and stand in that gap. And I will be so happy
Yes.
to not be the one mopping up the casualties and trying to clean up the messes that have been left by those who weren't
Yes.
to stand in that gap. Uh,
Exactly.
I'll
And
be glad to take a step back and just reload.
that's exactly what is needed. And yet I'm struck. I remember what is it last week? Somebody quoted. Somebody wrote on one of the posts. Oh, a woman should have read this book. You're hijacking women's voices. And I was very surprised. I'm like, wait a minute. I, that's like the exact opposite of what I'm actually trying to elevate
You're
them. And the
platforming women's voices. I
Yeah,
have
the
no.
goal is actually to elevate
Mhm.
women's voices and use my privilege and power as a male, as a therapist, as an author, as a previous pastor to actually know like that's the exact opposite. And she wouldn't get it. She kept saying over,
Mm.
well, no, this is a woman should have written this book. It's like women have probably written a lot of these books. And sadly, um, it actually takes people from power to disrupt systems of power. And
Yeah,
so just what you just said about, what that guy was saying was correct. They will not listen to women because they hate women.
yeah. And I'm just thinking about a conversation I had with my teenage son just a few nights ago. I don't remember what we were talking about, but as we are looking at raising the next generation to be different, somehow something came up about I think it was in some movie or a TV show that we had watched, and there was some negative slant on women thinking for themselves instead of following instructions.
Mm.
And he was just aghast. Of course, he's 15, 6'2", you know, coming into his manliness himself, and his voice has gotten deep, and he's like, I just don't understand
That's right.
why anyone would want a girl who just doesn't push back, just does what she's told. I said,
Yes.
oh, I mean, you have plenty of issues when your sister pushes back, but that's a bit different. And I said, okay, well, what do you want? And he looked me dead in the eyes. He says, Mom, I want a girl with a free mind.
Beautiful.
I want a girl who does not, who analyzes everything for herself, who thinks for herself, and who doesn't just do what other people tell her to do, and who has spunk and character. And I'm thinking, you know, if we can raise more men and women in the next generation who value each other's free minds,
Exactly.
ruled and governed only by the morality of Christ and the integrity of Christ, what would that safe church look like?
Yes, beautiful. I remember on the same lines, I remember I was working at the church, and my pastor friend, boss, all the above, was introducing him to Christy, who was my girlfriend at the time. And I introduced him, met her, and he pulled me to the side a little bit later, and he said, Andrew, like, don't you think you want more of, you know, like a helpmate? And I sat and I thought about it, and I was like, actually, no. Actually, I want a woman who will push me and challenge me. I want a woman with a strong sense of self, because I knew I had a strong personality and I could steamroll somebody, and I wanted to be called out on my crap. I wanted to be taken. I wanted to be right. I wanted to be somebody can take me on. I wanted a woman who has had a lot of goals, right? And because I had a lot of goals, because I was running fast, right? And so Dr. Christy Bauman can meet me intellectually. She can meet me where I'm at, right? And it's like, that's what I wanted. And the beautiful part is, in Genesis 2, the word helpmate actually means ezer, which actually means savior, which actually means that it's not a subordinate role. It actually means fight alongside, side by side.
It's like your equal warrior.
Exactly.
Person who you fight back to back with.
Exactly. And yet we've named it as kind of hamburger helper, right? We've have this, you know, it's just ridiculous, the interpretation of that word.
Will you be my hamburger helper?
You know, it's absurd. And so I actually did want a helpmate, but a very different definition than what we have defined it as. I wanted a partner who will fight alongside of me.
Yeah. Same goals, same trajectory, same path forward, fighting alongside, not behind.
Exactly.
Making sandwiches.
There you go.
To the front lines.
Gross.
Oh man, I love it. All right. So just to recap, because we have some new listeners on right now, and if you're watching this later, that's perfectly fine too. If you have loved this, or you're just joining right now, tag a friend underneath who definitely wants to see their church be safer. And check out this is where you can grab tickets to the Safe Church Conference that is coming March 7th and 8th in Brevard, North Carolina. There are limited spaces available. Do not wait to get your leadership team, your pastor, your youth leaders together, or even just members of your local Bible study group that want to move and shake and create some safer community in your local area.
Yes.
You can grab those
love to have
right
you.
now. And if you are too far away and you cannot possibly make it, there is a keynote live stream option where you can get those. They'll be recorded. You can watch them later. So we would love to see you March 7th and 8th. And that is christiancc.org/safe-church. And that's where you can grab your tickets.
Yes.
Anything else before we go, Andrew?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys' support and getting the book out there. Please write
Hold the
reviews.
book up again.
Yep,
Hold the book up
please,
again so we can all
please,
see it.
please write reviews. This is it right here.
Yep. Yep. Grab one on Amazon and then
Yeah.
drop in your review. Tell people how
Exactly.
you liked it. Get 5. Send
you
a
go.
few to your pastoral.
Why stop at 5, right?
I mean, get 25. Whatever.
Yes, 1,000.
Whatever your budget affords.
Yes, and this is if you're actually a real writer, you realize you do not really make very much money on
Yeah,
books.
this is not lining Andrew's
So
pockets with
don't you think that as I made about 10 cents an hour working on this, this is some money grab, which I've also
You made 10 cents an hour?
possibly.
Dude, you are outpacing the competition.
I am, which I've definitely heard that feedback as well, that I am profiting off the backs of women. It's just so gross. So get the word out there. We need to change the conversation and no longer allow abuse to run rampant in what's supposed to be the safest place, right? In our spiritual sanctuaries. So let's pass this around, write some reviews, get it out there. Appreciate your support.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you for hanging out with us this morning or afternoon, wherever you are.
Thanks for having me.
I see my mom's on here watching.
All right. Hey, Mama.
Hi, Mama. Anyway, come join us in March or grab a live stream ticket just in case you can't be there in person. That's okay too.
Yeah.
We'll be okay with that. We just want to share these tools so that more and more churches, just like yours, can be safer for this generation and the generation that's coming up next.
Amen. Look forward to seeing you at the conference.
See you at the conference, Andrew. Bye. Everybody else, message us if you have questions, and see you there.
We stand up to power and control. Let God's love and justice grow.